All right, cool. Welcome to lecture 3 of full stack decal, and we're talking about advanced CSS today. So let's get started. Assignments are due today. Homework 1 and homework 0. Homework 2 is releasing today, and I think that's it for the announcements. Okay, so today we're going to talk about positioning, which is how elements are placed geometrically on the screen. Now, almost all of the elements by default are static. Actually, all of them are static. So like they're there, right? The way you intuitively expect the element to be placed. But what if you wanted to change the position a little bit? Like you wanted to move it, 5 pixels to the right or whatever. Then you can make it relative. If you set it to relative, it's almost exactly the same thing as it being static. But now you can set the top and left CSS properties, and it will adjust your original location by that much. So top 50 pixels means that you will now have 50 pixels from where it was before at the top. So it will actually move down, which is a bit weird, but yeah. Top 50 means that you're actually 50 down. Left 50 means you're actually 50 to the right. Absolute is when you want to make your location relative to the parent element. So we have a red parent, and then we have the child, which is white, and we have the sibling of that child, which is blue. Yeah, it doesn't contribute size to the actual container. You will see that in a demo later, but that makes it so that, if the sibling element will be placed immediately under the parent. Fixed means it will be relative to the screen of your device. So you can see here that if I say position fixed, top right 50 pixels each, it's at the top right, and they're 50 pixels from the top and the right. Sticky means that it's the same thing as relative, but if you scroll away, it will stick to the side of your screen, and at which point it becomes fixed. So if you scroll up on this slide, like pretend you're scrolling, moves up, oh, it's stick now. So that is useful if you want things to stay on the screen after you scroll away. Okay, now let's do the sandbox. Okay, so this is, okay, I didn't want to type the demo live, so I already typed everything out, and I'll probably post this on the weekly announcements later. But you can see that the box class, don't worry about it. It doesn't adjust the display or position. So it will be the default thing. The div by default has static position and has block display. We'll talk about block display later. But you can see that it's placed where you expect it to be. It's right there on the page. You have another static div right here. It's placed under it because they're blocks, and they're also divs, which is why they're blocks. If you have a relative element here, so this is an example of a relative element. Let's take a look at what the relative class does. It sets the position to relative. So, and let's take a look at what the offset does. It does top and left 10 pixels. So this is why this element is a little bit weird, right? It's it's moved to the right and to the downwards 10 pixels each, which is what the top and left is doing. And you have to set the relative position to it. If you don't do that, then the top and left are ignored. If you have another, so notice that there's a space. Yeah, this is kind of important. Between this element and this element, there's a space there that used to be taken up by this element before it was relatively moved. Now that it's relatively moved, the space is still there, and that's kind of interesting to note, and that will be useful to know. We have an example of an absolute here. So this is just a container to have the role of the parent element. Oh yeah, and important to note, the absolute position only works if, or actually is relative to the first parent that is positioned. So it's important that the parent is positioned. If it's not positioned, it keeps going to the parent until it finds a positioned parent. And for a parent to be positioned, it can't be static. So as long as it uses relative, it is a positioned parent. The one that we want to actually talk about is this element. This one has the absolute class. Let's see what the absolute class does. It makes the position absolute. What does offset 2 do? It makes the top 23 and left 26, a little different. And this container has 3 elements. We have a static div first, then we have the absolute div, and then we have another static div. And notice that there's no space in between the sibling that was before the absolute element and the sibling that was after the absolute element. So like there's no gap here. Here you see a gap, here there's no gap. And that's because when you have an absolute positioned element, the size of that element doesn't contribute to the layout when it layouts the elements on the page. We have an example of a fixed element. You can see the one on the bottom right there. It doesn't move whether I score or not. And we have the sticky example. So these are regular divs, and we have one here that's slightly different. So if you pay attention to that one, that one's sticky. So if you take a look, it has the sticky class. What is the sticky class? It sets the position to sticky and also sets the top to 0, which is important. Without doing this, it doesn't stick. So let's see what happens if I scroll off the page or scroll the element off the page. Oh, it sticks. Okay, so that's what we expected to see, and that's behavior that the sticky value would do on the position property. Yeah.
Does it unstick if you scroll back up?
Yep. So it's kind of nifty, right? Yeah. Okay. That's for now. That's all there is to the sandbox. Okay, so let's talk about displaying, which is, before we're talking positioning, which is like geometrically, how would you, if you want to adjust the element geometrically in terms of like coordinates, how you would change that. Now we're going to talk about how the elements are going to be laid out on the screen. So that's what the display property does. So almost, okay. Div is block. So that's good to remember, right? Div is block. And it's the default for div. And if you use a lot of divs, then they will always by default be blocks. And what block does is it lays the elements out vertically. So the siblings stack vertically. That's important. They don't go side by side. They go vertically. Now you can set the display CSS property to inline. So that's what this does. And now all the siblings are horizontally placed. This is the default for span. So if you use a span element, the siblings are going to be side by side. And notice where each box lands to. This is what you should see in your head if when you're typing up the CSS, you change the display property from block to inline. You see all of the children in your head, like they move to the side now, right? So you can kind of predict what's going to happen in your head. So this is a grid. Instead of block or inline, you can set it to a grid. And what that does is you can make a grid. So that's useful when you want something that looks like a grid. 2D layout is the main reason why you want to do this. You can set this special CSS property that only is applicable to display grids called grid template column. I put 3 autos. What that means is I want 3 columns, and each of those columns should have a width of auto. So it's going to automatically calculate it for me. And since all 3 are auto, that typically means that they're going to be the same size. Now I don't have to make it 3 columns. I can make it 2 columns. And what I would do is remove one of the autos, and it becomes 2 columns. A flex box is a flex-like structure. So this is useful for alignment, not so much for 2D layout, although it is technically a 2D management type of deal. You set the display to flex, and the flex direction becomes whatever you want: row reverse, column reverse, and it will do it like that for you. So since the flex direction is row, it's going to be left to right, and have 7 elements right here. So there's 7 from left to right. And if I set the flex direction to column, try imagining in your head what that's going to look like, where each of those elements are going to end up instead. They're gonna do this, like they're gonna move there, right? So they're not literally gonna move, but this is what it's gonna look like on the output. The first element is gonna be at the top, and so on. So yeah, let's skip block because everything that we already saw here is block. And we'll begin with inline, right? So I have two span elements. I don't have to say that they're display inline because spans are by default inline. And I have two of them here, so they're next to each other. And you can see that here. The following are grids or flex boxes. So I have two grids here. This first one uses grid 3. The parent element is called grid 3, or uses a class called grid 3. Let's see what that does. Oh, it's what we saw on the slide. So, it's the same thing. Grid 2 is like that, but there's two columns. Okay. Flex, example, flex dash R is this. So it's the same thing as we saw on the slide, and it's what we expect. Left to right, 1 through 7. The first element is a 1, the last element is a 7. Okay. So in the code here, we have a flex RR. So I just changed the class. This is basically the same thing. I'm just changing the parent classes. And the children are still 1 through 7 in that order. And the class is now called flex-RR, which has a flex direction CSS property whose value is row reverse. And now the order of the children are in reverse order, and it's also right aligned by default. So that is kind of interesting to note. In the code, it looks like the elements are going to be in order from 1 to 7, but what you see on the screen is 7 to 1. So that is interesting. What is what?
It just flips like that.
Huh?
No, I said it just flips like that by nature.
Oh yeah, so this flex direction property, when I set it to row reverse, what that means is it's like in a row, but in reverse. Did that answer your question? Okay. I should probably pause to ask for questions. Does anyone have more questions? Okay. So specificity is how CSS property values are chosen. Some elements have multiple different values for the same CSS property defined, and you want to figure out which value that thing is going to take. So for each CSS property, this is important to know. For each CSS property, the value with the most specific selector takes the priority. So what does that mean? So these are the specificity points. What that means is in your CSS selector, by the way, CSS selector is like this. This is a CSS selector. This is also a CSS selector. So it's like the thing that says things that are selected by this CSS selector have this property applied. So specificity points stack. So if you have a universal selector, if you have like the asterisk braces or whatever, that adds 0 points. If you have elements, so like the body braces that you saw at the top of the style sheet, that's 1 point, and so on. This is not a competition, so you don't actually want the highest point value, right? Like if you keep on writing bang important all over your style sheet, it's going to be very hard to modify the look of your website. So you want to minimize it, but still be expressive. Okay. So this is an example of a CSS selector and a CSS property and its value. So try to think about how many points this has. You can take a look at this. Does anyone want to volunteer an answer or a guess? Okay, I hope everyone has like an answer in their head. So this is 10 points. Yeah. And the reason why it's 10 points is because we used a pseudo class or a non-pseudo class or an attribute. This is a class, so that adds 10 points to the specificity. Yeah. Okay, so how many points is this? Okay, hopefully you have an answer in your head now. This is 11 points. It's because you have this attribute here that adds 10 points. This is an element, so that adds 1 point. You have 11 points. Yeah, element adds 1 point, attribute adds 10 points. Okay. Now, how many points is this one? Okay, so, okay, I don't know why I waited. So don't like calculate this in your head. Like it's not important to be able to estimate this, or it's important to be able to estimate it, but it's not important to know exact value. And the reason why is there are online calculators for this. And for most cases, if you are having trouble figuring out why, in your browser, the CSS value for a specific property is not what you expect, you can do the inspect element and it would tell you which value, why that value was assigned the value it was. Yeah. Oh, and I think this is also how Chrome's engine calculates which property to use. So that's good to know. Yeah.
Could you go and inspect elements and show us how we can find that value?
Sure. Oh, you can't find the value, I don't think, but you can see, let's see. Oh, wait, hold on. I think I'm about to do, okay, I'll jump to the demo real quick. This div right here has two classes applied. So you see that there's the class called inheritance and another class called cascade applied to it. And that's what these two classes are. Oh, I should probably talk about cascade first, but yeah, let me talk about cascade first, and then I'll show you how to debug your CSS styles. Okay. So cascade is how CSS property values are prioritized in style sheets. So this is important to know, just like the specificity slide. Among the same specificity, the bottommost property in the style sheets takes priority. So for example, if a div has both of these classes applied to it, 10,000 and 1 million, what color will the text be? It'll be blue. So yeah, okay. Now I'll talk about this real quick. So if you ever use inspect element to hover over an element and you want to see why this is blue, for example, this is what it's going to look like. Is that big enough? Can you guys see that? How do I zoom in here? Oh, okay, that's interesting. So you can see that like I selected this element, which has both the cascade and inheritance property applied to it. And you can see that this one's like slashed out, and this is the only one that applies. It's what you see. And if you want to know why, you can hover over this. Oh. I don't know why it's not going to tell me why that's the case. Okay, well, at least you know that it's not being applied. Yeah. Heuristically, you can tell that it's not being applied because the cascade class is defined lower in the style sheet than inheritance. I don't know why this is not. This is like the only reason why I use Firefox for web dev, by the way. It's so that it will tell me why the CSS is like not what I expect it to be, but it's not telling me right now for some reason. Okay. Oh yeah, media queries. Okay. So this I'll cover it briefly because there's one main pattern for media query, and animation is like very complicated. So it's like its own lecture if if there was to be a lecture about it. So this is an example of a media query. It's a class that has, it's a div that has the class media query. Let's see what that is. I colored the background white and the background, or I colored the text white, the background color black. And let's see, at the bottom here, we can see that the media query, this is an example of a media query. What that means is if I am looking at this on a screen, so like every electronic device ever, and the width of this web page is at max 600 pixels, so 600 pixels or less, then apply these properties to this class instead. So if I make this a little bit smaller, it just changed because it's now less than 600 pixels. And oh, I didn't mean to close that. Uh-oh. How do I view the web page? Okay, well, I don't know how to make it appear again. And the last thing, you kind of saw it briefly. All it did was like animate between two different CSS values. The class is called animate, and you can see that animate has an animation property that is periodic. The period is 1 second, so it repeats every 1 second. It does this infinitely many times and it alternates between two keyframes, and the animation itself is called move it, move it. I defined the animation here using the at keyframes keyword, and this is one keyframe, this is the other keyframe, and it's going to alternate between those. Okay, I don't know how to make it appear for now, so we'll move on.
Sorry, excuse me. What's
Yeah.
the point of specificity here?
So let's say that you have, I write H1 color red. So that means all the headers, all the headings with level 1 should be colored red. And I also write .foo color blue. And now I have a header, H1 header with class foo. What color will that text under that tag be? Specificity answers that question because that element is both a heading 1 element and a foo element. And since foo is a class and H1 is an element, foo takes priority because the specificity of a class is 10 points, whereas the specificity of an element is 1 point.
So it helps determine colors in this case.
In this case, yeah. It actually helps determine every CSS property value. So every CSS property will go through this algorithm to see which value it would take on. It would be nice if I could do that right now, but how do I open this? I don't want to upgrade either. Oh, I guess that worked. Okay, well, you can see the animation now if you wanted to. I can do that specific example real quick here. Like I can say body color, purple's hard to see, yellow. And now all the text is yellow except for some of them, which is like the ones where I specifically said it was going to be red or blue. And that's because this specificity is 1, whereas the class specificity here is 10. Okay, that's it for today, except you have a guest joining soon. I finished a bit early. Finished a bit too early. Yeah, I mean, like, I can take questions or you can just like hang out for a bit. Yeah. Oh, that's for attendance, but I'm not going to tell you the magic word yet. You have to go through the guest lecture. It's pretty interesting. I promise it's pretty interesting. It's in 5 minutes. Wait. Yo. Hi, Nick.
Yo, what's up? Hi, Ito. How's it going?
Wait, I'm using the wrong speaker. Hold on.
Oh,
Let's try testing your mic.
oh, can you hear me? I do. Hi, everyone. Wait, is the mic working?
It's working.
Okay, cool. All right. Wait, can everyone hear me in the back? I guess like I don't know how loud the mic is. But,
It's
yeah.
it's I
um.
don't know how to turn it down.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So Yuto, do you mind if I share my screen?
Yeah, hold on. I just realized it's sharing. How do I? Oh, yes. Do you have? Are you able to share? Oh, I guess not. Are you able to share now?
Oh, actually, wait, hold on. I think I can share. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll need that in a sec, but yeah. Yeah. Coolio. Yeah, I think the permission should be fine. Let's check it. Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think it works.
Oops.
Okay.
Wait. Can you share your screen so that I can set it to full screen?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Wait for a second. Let me. Hold on, I'm trying to set it to full screen. I guess this is pretty close to full screen.
Yeah, it's nowhere it's not like full. That's fine.
It works. It's full screen now.
All right. Cool. Yeah. All right. Cool, yeah. I was gonna just start off by just talking to you guys a little bit. So hi everyone. Yeah, sorry for dropping in like this. So my name is Nick. It's so great to be here tonight. So I kind of just wanted to talk to you guys about a tool that I think might be helpful for you guys because I know I think you guys are doing CSS right now. So just a little bit about me. So I'm Nick. I'm a web developer that loves making tools to make it easier for other people to do web dev. So when I was learning web dev, I remember that it was very challenging, or like CSS in particular was actually like a pain in the ass. There's just a lot of things to. Yeah.
And can you like turn down your mic somehow? I don't know how to.
Oh, sorry. Am I talking too loud?
Oh.
Yeah. Here, wait. Things I can't really control. Like, it's just a mic.
Okay, I'll try that as well on this side. Yeah, I'm trying to volume down. It won't let me. Wait, I don't want to increase the volume. Can you adjust your
No, I can't.
volume?
I guess the only thing I can do is like, wait, I don't really know if there's any like setting I can do on my end. I just try speaking softer. That's
Oh, do you not have like the audio setting on Zoom? The input audio settings?
audio settings. Yeah. Let's see. I think it's like the lowest already. Input. See an output. Like,
I don't think I can change anything on this side.
if you go to the audio settings, can't you change the speaker volume?
It's at the minimum, so it can only get louder.
Oh, okay. Wait, was my voice like really, really loud or like?
Make it like a
Just-
10.
a 10. Okay.
That might be
Hi
too-
everyone.
like
So
a fifth.
okay, a fifth. I'll just speak like conversationally like this or like.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's
Yeah.
pretty
All right. I didn't realize that my voice is blaring like that. All right. Well, hi everyone. Yeah, I'll try speaking a little softer. Yeah, so basically like I built this tool to help you guys out with CSS or help people to learn CSS a lot faster. And so I specifically remember that like a lot of things that Well, a lot of what I was facing, like lots of things to remember within CSS. Remember there's a lot of scrolling through Google and just trying out like a bunch of random code. And so I think that you guys are in like week 2 or 3, and so you'll probably be experiencing these same things at some point, especially as you go along. And yeah, and so Starter CSS is basically this Chrome extension to rapidly implement CSS without having to parse through online docs. The goal of it was really to help people to experiment with CSS. So like if you're someone who's like really struggling understanding these concepts right now, I'm really trying to like save you time from like reading through all the CSS docs. The goal is really just to help you get the CSS for your intended designs at just a few clicks. And I'll show you what I mean by like clicks in just a few moments. But yeah, that's kind of like, I guess, the context of why I'm here today. I kind of just want to make CSS development like a little easier, a little faster for all of you guys. And so I have a little demo just prepared for you guys today, which is why I will share my screen. Okay. Yeah, so this is some just dummy code. Like imagine this is like a website you're developing. And so I'm not sure if that they introduced it already, but you guys will like be working with developer tools at some point in this semester. So if you don't know, developer tools are basically what you do when you do like inspect element. And so like all of these things here, it basically just lets you see the underlying HTML and CSS and like, also the JavaScript of the page. And so this can be a really great way to debug and just understand like what's going on. So Starter CSS is more specifically a DevTools extension. So it's embedded like right here as another tab. And so the idea of it is that, hey, let's say that I want to implement like a flexbox. You guys just learned a flexbox today. Like as a reminder, flexbox, like it's really like an integral part of making layouts. More specifically, like one directional layouts, like across across the screen like that. And so the idea behind Starter CSS is that rather than having to search up flexboxes, if you're someone new and doesn't really know what it means, you can just make one right in the browser. And so that looks a little weird. Sorry, I think there's some setting before. Okay. And so the idea we can do is that so normally, right, you'd have to do something like, so let's say I don't know what a flexbox is. You go to Flexbox Froggy, right? I recommend that. Or you can look through some docs like these. But obviously, this is kind of long. And like I just want to implement a flexbox. I don't really want to read all this. So with Starter CSS, you can implement a flexbox at just a click of a button, like I showed you before. But you can also just see all the possible settings that you can do with flexboxes. So for example, you can change the directions. You can change so if you want to change the horizontal and vertical or alignment of the blocks here, you can go to the center. I think right now it's actually, sorry, I need to disable this real quick. Yeah, so you can see the horizontal alignment changing. And also real quick, I actually forgot to tell you what this is. So this is what I call like a visualizer. It basically takes your, so like it first looks at your current element, and basically simulates your children into an isolated environment. And so you can see your Flexbox code just by itself. And so this can be a really great way to debug in the event that you have other things going along in this, like what's going on the screen right now. And so if it doesn't match what's on the screen, like if this, the appearance of the visualizer doesn't match on what's on the screen, you might have some other issues like specificity or like inheritance issues. But yeah, for now, you can just take a look at this and, this is just so you can see that your Flexbox code, or you can be sure that your Flexbox code is working the way you want it to. And so you can, change the vertical directions too. You can also interact with the children themselves. So if you want to enable the flex aspect of Flexboxes, you can just click on this, or you can also alter it too, and add custom properties here. And so this is also what I mean by experimentation. All the functionalities of Flexboxes are really laid out right here, just so that you don't have to read through an article like I showed you before. And oh yeah, also when you're done, you can look at the code as shown here, and then just copy it into your own code base. And yeah, so this is just like for flex boxes. There's also like functionality for grids. Like right now, the main functionalities, I think probably the most relevant for you guys today is just like flex boxes and grids, which are honestly probably the two most important things you guys will need for layouts this semester. And yeah, so like if you're, I guess, someone that's looking to just ease into CSS and DevTools also, I'd highly recommend that you check out Starter CSS. Also, like I'm like totally open to feedback right now. And so I'm actually gonna later just share like a quick feedback link with you guys. But yeah, so like you can the way you can like actually access this, by the way, is you can go to either, so like it's actually in week 2 right here. So like if you go to your week 2 content for the full stack decal and scroll all the way to the bottom to the DevTools section, you can just click on this link right here. Another way to access it is just going to bit.ly. So you can go to Starter CSS 1, and you'll also be able to see the item. Yeah. And yeah, so I think that's basically around. Yeah, I think that, yeah, basically the points I just wanted to get across that if you're, I guess, struggling with CSS, I mean, first of all, like you're not alone. It's kind of a pain in the, it's like, it's annoying. Yeah, if you want to, I guess, like skip the amount of time that of scrolling through online and want to experiment more with it within a DevTools extension, yeah, you can check it out with the link I just provided. Yeah, and I don't know if like you have like other things planned, but if there's any like if there's like 1 or 2 questions, I'm also down to answer them too.
Sure. You have questions? Okay, thanks for the demo.
Coolio. All right. Hope my mic wasn't too loud. All right. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Okay, this is like the same QR code as the one on the central index. Let's make the magic word block. Singular, block. Yeah, B-L-O-C. Wait, B-L-O-C-K. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, there is. Okay. That concludes the lecture. Thanks for coming. Sorry for the tech issues.